Did you know that Australia's household debt is now one of the highest in the world, even surpassing the US and UK? Or that over 40% of new home buyers are already struggling with mortgage repayments before interest rates peak? These aren't just numbers, they're warning signs. Quiet, creeping signals of an economy teetering on the edge. And yet, most Australians go about their day unaware of how close we might be to a financial crisis in 2025. In this video, we're diving into 10 powerful reasons why Australia's once rock-solid economy could be facing its most dangerous period in decades. From the bursting housing bubble and explosive national debt, to China pulling the plug on key exports, the warning lights are everywhere, and yet barely anyone's talking about it. But reason number 8? That one is already hitting millions of Australians right now. And by the time we get to number 10, you'll understand why some experts are calling this a slow-motion collapse. Buckle up. Number 1. Housing bubble ready to burst. For years, Australia's booming property market has been the poster child of economic strength. Cities like Sydney and Melbourne saw property prices double or even triple within a decade, creating an illusion of unstoppable growth. But beneath the glossy surface, a dangerous bubble has been inflating. And in 2025, it may finally pop. The core issue: unsustainable prices. Median house prices have soared to over 10 times the average income, making home ownership nearly impossible for younger Australians. Meanwhile, record low interest rates during the pandemic encouraged massive borrowing. But now, with interest rates climbing, many recent buyers are finding themselves underwater. Mortgage stress is spreading fast, with more than 1 in 3 households now paying over 30% of their income just to keep their homes. Construction delays, cost blowouts, and collapsing property developers are only adding fuel to the fire. Hundreds of building firms have already gone bankrupt, leaving ghost developments and unpaid contractors in their wake. As confidence slips, property investors are starting to pull back. And once panic selling starts, it could trigger a chain reaction that crashes property values across the country. The housing market doesn't exist in isolation. A burst bubble would slam banks, reduce household spending, wipe out retirement savings, and hit government revenue from property taxes, all at once. The dream of owning a home may soon become a national nightmare, especially if this collapse spirals into something bigger. Is this the end of the property gold rush, or just the calm before the storm? Number 2. Soaring national debt. Australia's national debt has quietly crossed a threshold that economists once believed was unthinkable. As of 2025, the federal debt is projected to surpass 1.3 trillion, and it's not slowing down. That's nearly 50% of Australia's GDP, a level not seen since the aftermath of World War II. But how did we get here? The answer lies in years of crisis-driven spending, from pandemic relief and stimulus packages to flood recovery, rising defense budgets, and energy subsidies. The government has been writing blank checks just to keep the engine running. While these measures may have been necessary, the cost of borrowing is now surging. Higher global interest rates mean Australia is paying billions more just to service the interest, not even touch the principal. This isn't just a spreadsheet problem. High debt levels mean fewer funds for essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Future generations may inherit an economy chained by repayments, unable to invest in growth. Even worse, international credit agencies have started warning of possible downgrades, which could further raise the cost of borrowing and scare off foreign investors. At some point, every nation hits a wall where debt becomes unmanageable. When trust fades, markets panic. And if confidence in Australia's economic management erodes, the consequences could be immediate. A falling currency, spooked markets, rising inflation, and a debt spiral that's impossible to escape. Australia has long been known for its financial discipline. But in 2025, are we witnessing the moment that reputation crumbles under the weight of unchecked borrowing? Number 3. China-Australia trade tensions. For decades, China has been Australia's economic lifeline, buying up iron ore, coal, wine, beef, and even sending hundreds of thousands of students and tourists. But in recent years, that relationship has soured dramatically, and in 2025, the cracks are deepening into potential collapse. It started with political disagreements, calls for an investigation into COVID-19's origins, concerns over espionage, and Australia's rejection of Chinese tech giants like Huawei. In retaliation, Beijing imposed harsh trade sanctions, blocking billions of dollars worth of exports. While some restrictions have since eased, the trust is broken, and that's dangerous for an economy as dependent on one partner as Australia is on China. Here's the hard truth. Over 30% of Australia's exports still go to China. If that demand slows or vanishes entirely, industries could collapse overnight. Mining companies would lose their biggest customers, university revenues would plummet, and rural economies built on agriculture could face ruin. Even a small shift in China's buying behavior could cause massive job losses and wipe out billions from the economy. Worse, China is actively seeking new suppliers, turning to Africa, South America, and domestic alternatives. This isn't just a temporary feud, it's the beginning of a long-term economic decoupling that leaves Australia exposed, isolated, and searching for new trade partners in a more uncertain global landscape. In 2025, Australia faces a painful question. What happens when your biggest customer no longer picks up the phone? Number 4. Consumer confidence collapse. Walk into a shopping mall in 2025 and you'll feel it. The energy is gone. Stores are half empty, sales are constant, and yet people aren't spending. Why? Because consumer confidence in Australia has hit historic lows. And when people stop spending, economies start breaking. Australians are feeling the squeeze like never before. Inflation has pushed the price of everyday essentials, groceries, electricity, petrol, through the roof. Even with small wage increases, it's not enough. According to recent surveys, more than half of Australian households now say they're cutting back on non-essential spending. That means fewer restaurant visits, fewer vacations, and no more just because purchases. But the impact goes far beyond empty shopping carts. Consumer spending makes up nearly 60% of Australia's GDP. When confidence drops, so does demand. And businesses start feeling the pain. Retailers slash prices, cut staff, or shut down entirely. Layoffs increase, which then further destroys confidence, creating a vicious cycle that's hard to escape. Banks are also tightening lending, afraid that borrowers won't repay. That means fewer loans for cars, homes, and businesses, making it even harder to stimulate growth. What we're seeing isn't just frugality, it's economic fear, creeping into the hearts of everyday Australians. And here's the scariest part. Confidence is psychological. Once it's broken, it takes years to rebuild. No stimulus package or quick fix can restore what's been lost overnight. If the Aussie consumer stops believing in the economy stops working. Number 5. Record high household debt Australia is often praised for its strong banking system and high standard of living. But beneath that praise lies a staggering truth. Australians are now among the most indebted households on Earth. As of 2025, the average household owes more than 200% of their disposable income, and that's before interest rate hikes are fully felt. This debt isn't just from home loans. Credit cards, personal loans, car payments, and buy now, pay later schemes have become a financial trap for millions. Many households are juggling multiple debts, relying on short-term fixes just to survive the month. When one payment slips, the entire structure starts to collapse. And now, with interest rates rising and cost of living increasing, those once manageable debts are turning toxic. Every rate hike adds hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars in repayments per year. For those on fixed incomes, that's money they simply don't have. Defaults and bankruptcies are already on the rise, and experts warn we could be heading toward a household debt crisis unlike anything in Australia's modern history. What's worse is the psychological toll. Debt-induced stress is impacting mental health, family relationships, and even workforce productivity. It's not just an economic issue, it's a national well-being issue. If households continue to drown under this weight, it could trigger the next domino in Australia's economic downfall. We pour our hearts into creating videos like this to bring you honest, deep insights. If you found it valuable, drop a comment below. We read every single one. And hey, a quick subscribe is just one click, but it means the world to us. Love. Number 6. Interest rate volatility. Just a few years ago, Australians were enjoying historically low interest rates, some even below 2%. Fast forward to 2025, and that dream is over. The Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, has been playing a dangerous balancing act, swinging rates up and down in an attempt to curb inflation, stabilize the housing market, and manage economic growth. The result? Volatility, confusion, and widespread financial pain. Interest rates are no longer predictable. One quarter, homeowners are tightening belts to cover soaring mortgage repayments. The next, businesses are scrambling to adjust budgets as borrowing costs shift again. This kind of instability makes it nearly impossible to plan ahead, especially for average families and small businesses. People are delaying major purchases, avoiding home upgrades, and cancelling expansion plans because no one knows what's coming next. And for the millions of Aussies on variable rate mortgages, every shift feels like a punch in the gut. A 1% increase on a $600,000 loan can mean an extra $500 or more every month, money that many households simply don't have. Meanwhile, investors are getting nervous, businesses are freezing hiring, and banks are becoming more cautious about lending. This uncertainty is a silent killer of economic momentum. Without stability, confidence crumbles, and when confidence goes, so does spending, investment, and growth. In short, interest rate volatility isn't just a financial headline. It's a wrecking ball, swinging through households, businesses, and the economy at large. And in 2025, it's one of the most unpredictable threats Australia faces. Number 7. Collapse in construction industry. Once a cornerstone of Australia's economy, the construction industry is now crumbling under pressure. In 2025, what was once a thriving sector, powering growth, jobs, and housing development, is now littered with bankruptcies, abandoned projects, and widespread layoffs. The warning signs have been there for months. Over 2,000 building companies have collapsed since 2022, and that number keeps climbing. Material costs surged during global supply chain disruptions, and many firms signed fixed-price contracts before inflation exploded. Now, they're locked into projects they can't afford to finish, bleeding money with every passing day. It's not just companies that are hurting. Homebuyers and investors are trapped too. Thousands of Australians have poured their life savings into homes that may never be completed. Delays stretch into years, costs balloon, and legal disputes become common. Confidence in the industry is at an all-time low, and with it goes one of the country's major economic engines. This collapse has ripple effects everywhere. Construction directly supports over 1.2 million jobs across Australia. When projects stop, suppliers, tradespeople, architects, and engineers all suffer. Local economies built around development zones are drying up, and governments are facing pressure to step in, with no easy solutions in sight. As fewer homes are built, the housing shortage worsens, pushing up rental prices and deepening the affordability crisis. Australia isn't just losing buildings, it's losing stability, opportunity, and the industries that fuel upward mobility. If the construction sector doesn't recover, we're not just facing a slowdown. We're staring at a full-scale economic fracture. Number 8. Cost of living crisis. It's the crisis that's not just on the news. It's in your shopping cart, on your power bill, and at the petrol station. In 2025, Australia's cost of living has reached crisis levels, and for many families, life has become a constant battle just to stay afloat. Basic necessities, food, fuel, rent, and energy have seen double-digit price increases in just the last 18 months. The average grocery bill is up by nearly 25% since 2023. Electricity bills are spiking due to global energy instability, and at the same time, petrol prices swing unpredictably with every overseas conflict or supply shock. Meanwhile, wages have barely budged, leaving millions with less buying power than ever before. This isn't just inflation, it's a cost of survival. People are skipping meals, deferring medical care, and putting off essential home repairs. Some parents are even pulling kids out of after-school activities or cutting internet access, once unthinkable decisions for middle-class households. Small businesses are suffering too. With consumers tightening their wallets, cafes, retail shops, and service providers are seeing revenues drop. This creates a downward spiral. Less spending means fewer jobs. Fewer jobs mean more people struggling. And the cycle repeats. And let's not forget mental health, the silent casualty. Financial stress is now one of the leading causes of anxiety and depression among Australians. This cost of living crisis isn't just squeezing wallets, it's squeezing hope, dreams, and the very sense of security that once defined Aussie life. Number 9. Global economic slowdown. Even if Australia were doing everything right domestically, there's one force it can't escape: the global economy. In 2025, the world is cooling down fast, and Australia, deeply tied to global trade and investment, is feeling the chill harder than most. The United States is flirting with recession. China's growth, once the unstoppable engine of the world, is slowing dramatically due to internal debt, declining demographics, and political tensions. Europe is battling energy shortages and persistent inflation. This worldwide economic drag means fewer buyers for Australian exports, fewer tourists, fewer international students, and far less foreign investment. Australia's economy relies heavily on mineral exports, tourism, and international education, all of which are highly sensitive to global demand. When that demand falls, so do profits, jobs, and tax revenues. Already, we've seen a drop in resource prices, reduced student enrollments, and hesitant capital markets. Businesses are pausing expansions, and investors are choosing safer, more stable regions. And it's not just exports. Multinational companies are pulling back, startups are struggling to raise capital, and everyday Australians are seeing their superannuation accounts shrink due to volatile global markets. The optimism that once drove innovation is being replaced by uncertainty and caution. The global slowdown acts like a silent anchor, dragging down even the best prepared economies. For Australia, that anchor is already tightening, and in 2025, there's no clear sign of when the weight will lift. Number 10. Population stagnation and immigration. Decline Australia has always relied on steady population growth to fuel its economy. New workers, new consumers, and new taxpayers meant more demand for housing, infrastructure, education, and services. But in 2025, that engine is stalling, and the long-term consequences could be devastating. Birth rates have fallen to their lowest in decades, with many young Australians delaying or forgoing parenthood altogether due to financial uncertainty. At the same time, immigration, once a key driver of Australia's growth, has slowed sharply. Pandemic-era border closures and rising global competition for skilled migrants have left a lasting scar. Even now, with borders open, fewer people are choosing Australia as their destination. This means fewer students in classrooms, fewer renters and buyers in the property market, and fewer workers to fill growing labour shortages. Entire sectors, from agriculture to to aged care are struggling to find staff, while businesses are forced to reduce hours or close locations altogether. Fewer people also means weaker consumer demand, especially in smaller towns and suburbs that once thrived on migrant growth. As populations flatten or decline, governments collect less tax, strain to fund services, and face harder decisions on where to allocate resources. Over time, the economy slows, not from a crisis, but from a gradual erosion of momentum. Without bold immigration and population policies, Australia risks becoming an aging, shrinking economy, unable to compete in a fast-changing world. The question is, can we reverse the trend before it's too late? Australia stands at a critical crossroads in 2025. The warning signs are no longer subtle, they're flashing in plain sight. From the crumbling housing market and ballooning national debt, to the cost of living crisis and deepening global uncertainty, every piece of the puzzle points to a fragile economy on the edge. But this isn't just about numbers. This is about real people. Families skipping meals, young Australians giving up on home ownership, small businesses closing their doors. It's about trust being shaken, and a future that suddenly feels far less certain. Yet in every crisis lies opportunity. If we acknowledge the risks and act boldly through reform, innovation, and smart policy, there's still a chance to rewrite the story. But time is running out. So the question now is, are we prepared to face the truth and take action? Or will we look back and say, we saw it coming, but did nothing?